Hey everybody, Doug here. Wanted to give a quick announcement before we got this podcast going. Our guest is Sosin, and he is a filmmaker. And one of the things we talked about is his short film, The Canyon, which is perfect for Halloween because it is a horror film. And since we recorded this, he was lucky enough to get the film into the Twin Cities Film Festival, which starts, I believe, October 16th. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes to that. So if you happen to be in the Twin Cities area in Minnesota, you can go see the film live. But also you can stream it online. So you can go to the link that's right there with this podcast and watch the whole thing yourself and have yourself a good time. All right, with that, let's get to this awesome episode of Nostalgia Marcanum. See you soon.
Hello, and welcome to Nostalgia Marcanum. I'm your host, Doug Leaf. Each episode of this podcast, we'll look back on the movies, TV, games, people, and phenomena that we still love talking about all these years later, and ask ourselves why these bits of pop culture still enchant us today. This week, we'll be revisiting...
Happy Halloween, everybody. We're doing a bonus episode because I want to cram as much Halloween into October as I can. So we'll be doing the first silent podcast. No, that would be horrible to listen to. We're doing a podcast about a silent movie, specifically the 1925 question mark. We'll talk about that. Phantom of the Opera, the Lon Chaney version, one of the most famous silent films of all time, and a really extraordinary piece of filmmaking from this early golden era of Hollywood. And help me do it, you've actually just heard him on the podcast recently, as this week. Please welcome back to the show, filmmaker Sosin.
Thanks for having me back. Round 5, I think.
Yeah, so audiences just heard the Return to Oz episode this week, as this is scheduled to come out.
Right.
So I thought it would be good to have you back to do this and to drop it off the same week. So let's start, as we always do, by talking about our nostalgic memories of the subject. So Alex, I know this one is near and dear to your heart. So
yeah.
Why are we talking about this particular iteration of Phantom of the Opera today?
Well, a lot of people say I'm a huge Phantom of the Opera fan. This goes back to when I think we first knew each other. Oh, I don't want to say it was maybe
third grade.
Something like that. But around that time, I think my dad, or I had bought it myself. My dad had essentially brought home the VHS of the Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera. My first introduction to Phantom of the Opera was, funny enough, the book that you have. I think the first introduction was seeing the M.A.S.K for the musical, the whole M.A.S.K. It was the sad opera M.A.S.K. And I was kind of under the impression, I should really check out the silent film, because in my brain, I didn't know much about Phantom of the Opera. I was like, oh, maybe he's wearing that mask. Of course, he's not. But it was just, for me, I think it struck a chord, just the timeless storytelling of the ghost that haunts the opera house, the supposed ghost, actually, a tormented human being. And I don't know, I think part of me is kind of a tormented human being, like just the writer's, lonely filmmaker side of things. And I mean, I could go on forever, but my first introduction to Phantom of the Opera was watching the Lon Chaney, which was followed, at your recommendation, we were both young kids, was the Claude Rains. But my first and foremost introduction, I think even before the musical, which I saw as a kid, was the Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera. And I just I fell in love. I mean, it was really one of the first horror movies I ever saw. I mean, even as a kid, a squeamish kid, seeing a silent film, because I had heard about the unmasking and I'd heard about it. It was kind of like a test of manhood. Can I sit through the unmasking of a silent film? Spoiler, I did. I made it. I survived. But ever since then, I've seen just about every version of Phantom of the Opera and the Phantom of the Paradise, which is one of my favorites by De Palma, and Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge, and Phantom of Hollywood, which was a TV Phantom. I've seen them all, but the truest to the Gaston Leroux novel, aside from another I can think of, is Lon Chaney, who, I mean, was such an interesting person that there was a movie made about him with Jimmy Cagney called Man of a Thousand Faces that you might know. I can go on forever, but my first intro to Phantom was as a kid, right around the time I think we were, both in third grade.
Yeah, and I can't remember if this is one of these pop culture things that like I saw and infected you with it, or the other way around.
You might have.
Because I talked about this way back on the second episode of the podcast, which is about the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical.
Right.
That was my introduction to it, and like in terms of like inside out core memories, like one of the most, in retrospect, one of the most formative things in my life of going to see that show with Michael Crawford. It was in '88. Still performing the title role, and it just blew me away, which made me want to go learn more about Phantom the story. At some point, I read the book. I know
you had seen the musical first.
I saw the musical. I saw first before I read the book, and before I saw the Lon Chaney version. And at some point, I saw all these other ones, but I don't remember in what order I saw these things. But I definitely fell in love with this silent version. It was really interesting because it's the only silent movie I had seen up to that point.
Me too.
And
that was my first,
And it's great. It's really effective. We'll get into all the things that make it impressive and almost like the launch pad for modern horror. There's so much in this movie that still works, and people draw on today.
The first early blockbuster, though. I mean, they had marketing for it. They had merchandising. I mean, it was insane. This was, Ceylon, we'll get into it, but it was like its own like Jaws or something.
Yeah, this was huge, right in the middle of the Roaring '20s. And at almost at the last gasp of the silent era before the jazz singer in 27 brought along talkies.
Right.
So here we are talking about a movie 99 years after it came out, and it's still
incredible,
as potent as it was the day it was released. It's really impressive. I do want to mention a couple of things up top before we kind of get real deep into the weeds. One, so this is going to come out on October 19th, if you're listening to it the day it drops. I believe on October 25, I will be on another podcast talking about this very same movie. Our friend Jala Prendez, who you've heard recently on this show on our episodes on In Living Color, Predator. She went on Care Bears. Oh, and the original Terminator. Her show, Jala Chan's Place. We were just happened to be chatting because she's a big fan of Phantom of the Opera as well. And she was planning on doing an episode on this. So we decided to make it like a student exchange program. So I'll be on her show in a week talking about this. Sweet. That episode is going to focus a little more on the like film preservation issues around the movie and some of those other things. This episode of our show is going to be a little more on the artistic stuff. So I just wanted to put that up front so you go put that on your calendar to listen to. And then the other thing is there are multiple versions of this movie. It was edited and then re-edited and redone. There's a couple of different ones. I'm going to put a YouTube link into the show notes so you could follow along and watch the one that we're specifically going to be recounting today.
Probably the most popular one.
Yeah, because if you watch it and you're like, this doesn't quite match up with the thing that I saw, I get it. That's that it's hard to figure out which one to look at.
Yeah.
The one I'm using today, it does not have the one thing about it is the score is not, I believe, the score that was written for it, but this one uses a lot of color, which is really interesting because it is a quote unquote black and white movie, but
using the two-strip Technicolor process for certain sequences.
Yeah, if you want to talk about that a little bit, because I think it adds a lot to the movie.
Well, right. I mean, and it wasn't, and then the Claude Rains came later, and I love the Claude Rains almost as much as the Lon Chaney, but yeah, they had it. They had
well, that's a true color movie, though.
It's a true color movie, and it's very tame. It is not macabre, and it's not kind of like German expressionism in America, and it's not any of those things. But it's a beautiful film, in my opinion. But I digress. They used the early Technicolor process, I think painstakingly hand by hand for certain sequences, and we'll get to it, but obviously the Masquerade Ball, which was done so, I mean, this is the first intro to the Masquerade Ball, which everybody knows from the Michael Crawford and subsequent actors all doing the Lloyd Webber musical, but yeah, man, it aims to please. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, and what's cool is, so that sequence in particular is actually like they painted each frame in color to make this a color sequence.
Yes.
Just during the Masquerade, though. But there is color used throughout the rest of the film in that it's like, picture like sepia, where everything is black and white but also kind of brown. Right. They do that but with other colors, so like it's often blue and, so like when you're in like kind of the normal parts of the opera house, it's kind of sepia, right? When you're like back when you're in the watching the opera itself, you're in the offices of the people that run it. But when you're, say, more in the Phantom's world, it's a little more like green or blue in the depths. Like, they really use color to interesting effect that way. I just really love that part of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, early crowd pleasing techniques. I mean, we had train leaving the station. People got scared. A couple years later, we would have King Kong. But this one made people faint in the theater. We'll get to why. But this was like the big event. Theatrically of 1925 is from what I understand. I mean, if it was 20, well, again, we'll get into it.
And obviously a lot of credit on that goes to Lon Chaney himself, who,
oh my God,
not only does he give one incredible performance, first of all, you barely see him in the first half of the movie. Mm-hmm. When you see him with his mask on, he's every bit as scary as with it off.
Absolutely.
But he's acting when you can't see his face and there's no sound, he can't talk. Yet he has to still be effective and scary, and like all of that physicality is great. And of course, this all-timer makeup job it's not like he had a makeup artist to help him. He did this to himself.
Yeah, I mean he would do it at home. I mean there are different stories, but the most important thing about the Phantom of the Opera, and again we'll get into it, but the most important thing is that the makeup job that he applied to himself and tortured himself. By the way, this is a man who turned himself in the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And physically tortured himself. This was no CGI. This was no simple makeup effects. The man stuck things into and up his face to contort his face. And we'll get into the different stories of which one was the correct version of just what he did to himself. But this was the real deal. And he it's like stunt work. I mean, he tortured himself for our pleasure, and born to deaf parents, so he learned to mime at an early age. I think he was in the circus. I'm not 100% on that, but I saw Man of a Thousand Faces. But this guy was so interesting, and who better to play, the emotive, endlessly angry Eric, passionately in love with Christine. I mean, he probably is still the best, most known Phantom as far as performance. I mean, everybody goes back to Lon Chaney.
Yeah, and so this movie and the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, there's that other musical that no one remembers because Andrew Lloyd Webber just wiped it off the face of the earth.
Yeah, there was Phantom.
But those are the only major ones, that actually try to adapt the LaRue novel with any faithfulness. The others, starting with the Claude Rains one, they start taking a lot of creative liberties where it's like a Phantom of an opera, and they kind of use like elements of the story without adapting it directly. And the biggest change in the Claude Rains one going forward is that the Phantom is not born disfigured. He is rendered disfigured through various events, which are different from story to story.
That's right.
And which is a fundamental change. But here, like, Lon Chaney's makeup is pretty true as a human being can be, using traditional makeup methods to what LaRue describes in the book.
Although I will say, I recently read that there was a version of the script written that they didn't go with for budgetary reasons, that they actually were going to do the scenes where the Phantom in his early years was working for the Shah in the Middle East, and he did something wrong, and he wound up getting sentenced to death by getting eaten alive with ants. He was bailed out by his friend who would become an Inspector Ledoux, the Persian. So I believe the ants disfigured his face. This never happened. They also never say in the film exactly what happened to him, but from all my research and just loving the novel and knowing the film, this was the original that he's born deformed. And they would do it a few times with the Charles Dance version, 1990 with Burt Lancaster. He was also born deformed, which is the scariest makeup. But then I digress. On and on. They would, he'd get acid thrown in his face, or in Phantom of the Paradise, get his head caught in a record pressing machine, or all kinds of fun things to disfigure him, which I think still work because he gets more and more pissed off that way. But this guy was born fugly, really fugly. I mean, this guy was born, this is the worst of the worst.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a different psychological profile for someone who is born this way.
You have to live with it.
Yeah, this is all he's ever known is utter disgust at the hands of everybody he meets, including his own family. Now, none of that backstory is here in the LaRue. No. I mean, in the 25 silent film. No. You only get a teeny bit of his backstory here, and we'll talk about it when we go through the beat by beat. And even in the book, it's like basically in the epilogue, you get a few paragraphs detailing his backstory. There's a really fun book called Phantom by Susan Kay. It's out of print. It's hard to get, but it is essentially one of the best works of fan fiction you'll ever find that takes those little details at the end of the LaRue book and blows it up. And so that it's Eric's entire story, basically from birth to death. It's pretty arch and melodramatic, but also really effective and interesting. I think it does a good job of really giving you his, like I said, his profile. But getting back to the 25 movie, I just have to tell this other story, which is like one of my personal favorite things that I have here. I'm not much of a collector of like things, but I do have Mary Philbin's autograph. It's right here. She plays Christine in the movie, and by a stroke of ridiculous luck, she moved in to the same retirement complex where my grandmother lives.
You've told me this.
Yeah,
okay. You've told me this
3 doors down, and this was
jealous.
Yeah, I was like probably 11 or 12, or so. This is right near the end of her life, and my grandmother knew that I was into the Phantom, and she said, "You won't believe this, but guess who moved in?" And so I spent an hour, chatting with her, and she was telling me all these great stories of old Hollywood. I wish I could remember what she said. Unfortunately, it was 30 years ago, so I don't remember. But just an incredible opportunity to spend some time with her, because this was really the end of her career for the most part.
Right.
Once Talkies came along, she was done. She had done a few other movies before this. I think she's in, was it The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari? Another notable.
She might have been in. Well, I don't know, because Caligari was more of a German production with Conrad Veidt.
Maybe not, or is it The Man Who Laughed? I forget. Some other famous silent film other than this one.
Also with Conrad Veidt.
But this is by far her biggest, most famous thing.
Well, this is right. Well, just like Fay Wray. I mean, when you think Fay Wray's known for King Kong. I mean, she did other movies. She did Mystery of the Wax Museum. She did many movies, but everybody's known for. And Gloria Stewart's known for Invisible Man and Titanic.
Right.
So,
But one of the things I wanted to talk about before we kind of again launch into the story beats, the filming of this, the production of it, obviously we'll get, it was a very troubled production. But I'm just thinking about the art design. They recreate the Paris Opera House beautifully in the film. A set that stood on, as you said, it's lot 28 in Universal Studios until 2014. They were using this thing.
Amazing.
Including, as you said, the Claude Rains Phantom. When you see the shots of the Opera House, it's the exact same set as the silent version.
And it was redone by Hitchcock for Torn Curtain, because I think it was in disarray. But I was lucky enough. You got your Philbin autograph? Fine. I was lucky enough to... comparing scars like Jaws. No, but I was lucky enough to walk onto the set when I was interning a long time ago at Universal, and I had my own, I actually had my own golf cart, and I was able to, stop by, go up Spielberg Drive, watch the shark do its thing, and I wanted to explore a little bit of the back lot, and I wandered onto stage 28, and I kid you not, you pull back kind of some curtains behind some curtains, and they had full-on opera house boxes. I mean, that was it. These were the opera house boxes from Phantom of the Opera, and I just stood there. I was blown away. I mean, I was blown away. I'm like, this was in the 1925 film. They called action on this set. Amazing.
Yeah, a real like that. You can just feel like the love that was put into. I mean, the level of like painstaking detail in this thing,
and the emotion of Chaney. I feel like he once again. I know we still have yet to get into it. Luckily, it's a short film, but this film would not have the longevity that it has without Lon Chaney 100%. You feel like when you think about the film and feel why it's so emotional, or just why any fans was emotional. The angst of Eric and the twisted love story and the, wanting the girl. And we've all kind of been there. But Chaney was this film. And we'll get into him maybe taking over a little bit.
Again, a towering, colossal performance. But I was going to say, so that's the art direction for Upstairs. The art direction for Downstairs, man, this actually, the fact that this is a silent film and the film has sort of degraded over time, like the fact that it's so dark, the contrast is so high between like light pools, the little pools of light, like the inky blackness in the cellar. Like it is one of the scariest sets I've ever seen in any play. Like it really sells that feeling of like, we've all had that as a kid. You got to go down to the basement.
Talk to Joseph Bouquet, who just looks like a fucking angry pirate, and he's like some angry, he's like some twisted looking guy. Yeah, you see faces in the dark. I mean, this movie was scary. And the way
it's still pretty scary, and it's a victory of tone. Like there's something about the tone of this combined with that inky blackness in the world below. Like it just it makes you feel
giant
like
head, that tunnel head that you go through, or something like that.
Yeah, the rat catcher. Like there's just so much just creepy stuff down there. It's they sell this so well. It's so tactile. It's so maybe we should start getting into the film and this other stuff we'll talk about along the way. But as you said, troubled production to say the least.
A little bit.
I think wasn't it like Rupert Julian, the director, and Lon Chaney weren't even on speaking terms.
They were not on speaking terms. There was a point where I think the set director, I mean, I'll mix up who was who, but I know that somebody had to be the kind of the translator between the two, like, Rupert, to Lon, Rupert Julian says he wants you to do this, and then Lon would write down, tell Rupert to go to hell. So that was the kind of speaking terms they were on. And Julian was not very experienced. He had done some films, kind of shocking silent films. I think one called like Merry-Go-Round or something. He had done some I think not so complicated films, but he was in over his head with this production. This was a massive production. This was a Carl Laemmle, Universal Pictures, first of its kind horror movie production. We all know how lavish the Universal Picture, the line of horror movies are. So it was a very, very complicated production with a lot going wrong and a lot of reshoots, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, and Carl Laemmle, kind of the founder in a way of Universal,
right? The face of horror, really.
Yeah, and he met LaRue in person.
Yes,
and LaRue was the one who he was in Paris, and that's where he met him. And he said, "Here, you like it? You like looking at the opera house? You should read this book I wrote."
Right. It was all because he liked the opera house. He's like, "Oh, here's a talk about an elevator pitch. Oh yeah, I just happened to write this thing that was I mean, to talk to the author, to the actual author about it. But yes, that is how it started.
Yeah, and LaRue lived long enough to see the movie, I believe.
He did. Yeah.
All right, so let's start this thing out. So we get our titles, and then again, your mileage may vary as to how this movie opens, depending what cut you watch. But so I'm going to go with the one I saw.
They all say Phantom of the Opera.
They all start with the title, The Phantom of the Opera, and the names of the people in the movie. Yes, as to be expected.
It's always Lon Chaney.
Yes. So we see this man just kind of walking around in the depths with a lantern. Probably Joseph Bouquet. He's kind of at a distance. It's not quite clear who this is, but probably Bouquet, because he says he's seen the Phantom. And we just see this shadow of Lon Chaney's silhouette pass by, and it's just the scariest shit in the world. Like, it's that feeling of like I should
Return to Oz scary, or just a different kind of scary.
Different kind, but like you're in a dark place. Like this is like at least 3-4 levels down in basements,
and no sound effects, no dialogue. Complete. This is the purest form of terror. All you have, depending on which version you watch. I mean, the first I saw on the VHS was organ music. Yeah. So, and I'm watching the 1925. It starts the way you said. You see the guy come out of the darkness. You see the shadow of the Phantom, which would be reused countless times. The Claude Rains version did a good job too. But the minute you see it, you're scared shitless because we know nothing about what the Phantom looks like. Say you're an audience member in 1925. We don't know anything. We have not been allowed to see publicity photos, they kept it a secret to people on the set. Again, going fast forward, but we know nothing. But yes, we see that shadow, and already it sends chills down the spine. It's not brightly lit, like you said. It's very dark, focused shots. Really, really scary stuff.
Yeah, and it's like the like 2-sentence short story. Well, like 2-sentence short story, horror short story, right? The last man in the world is sitting at a table by himself. Then there's a knock at the door, right? Like this guy's supposed to be alone in a scary place, and there's somebody else there. Like, and that's so much of the terror of this is just like this guy could be anywhere, and like he's just living in the walls.
Right.
So we get a title card here that tells us, talks about the rising opera house sitting on top of medieval torture chambers long forgotten, which is
fantastic.
They're really efficient with these because they don't have a lot of room to cram a ton of text onto these cards. And they really make it count. Like they make it's a sentence with like maybe 12 words in it, but they turn a phrase so well. It's so evocative.
It's not over explained.
No, it's just it's like, yep, I'm scared already. Again, the Paris Opera House sits on top of medieval torture chambers.
I think there was a version where Eric was, again, they didn't include it, but he was going to be the head. I think he was like the taskmaster of those torture chambers and those ancient times before the opera was built or something like that, and he went on to become the Phantom. There's so many versions of it, but yes.
Yeah. All right, so we fade away from this and we get to, the arrival of the masses at the opera house. We see there's a ballet being performed, business as usual. And we see another title card that talks about Melody floating to an office where a strange deal is being closed. And this is the sale of the opera house from its to new ownership.
Yes.
And I love this. One, I wrote down just monocles, mustaches with exclamation points. Because again,
I said good day.
It's the late 1800s.
I said good day, sir.
Everybody looks as you would expect people to look in the late 1800s.
Yeah.
But I love the knowing looks from the old owners that are like they are so thrilled to be unloading this thing.
It's like Poltergeist. Here, you take the house or whatever it is. Yeah. It's like, here, you take it. That's your problem now.
Yep. And they kind of drop in. It's like, you may hear of a Phantom of the Opera, and they just like laugh about. They're like, they're like, you won't laugh when the occupant of Box 5 is involved.
Yes,
such again, like they are so efficient with how they tell the story.
Yeah, it's the foreboding of Chaney, and again, going back to the fact that we don't know what he looks like, and we don't know. We know something's going to happen. We just don't know what Chaney looks like yet. That's what I got out of it, seeing this film for the first time.
Yeah, and no matter how many times I see a version of Phantom of the Opera, one of the cool things about it is the first chunk of the story is like he really feels like he is supernatural. Like he is a ghost or he is capable of all these amazing things. And then, of course, the peeling away of that to reveal how human he really is. Is great, but like I never stopped kind of being like entranced by that concept of like at this point, like you believe like there really is something magical afoot in the opera house.
That's always what's been so effective about every version of this is that there is this idea that he's this larger than life ghostly character who's a complete mystery. It's not far from kind of like the way I felt about Michael Keaton's Batman or something. It's like we don't know who this person of the shadows is, but we have this sense of foreboding. That's always been one of the amazing things of Phantom, that he's made this larger-than-life personality to cover his personal insecurities and his disfigurement, literal disfigurement, and wearing the mask. And these are all things that are, even in the versions where he's not born deformed, I've always loved transformation scenes from heroes into villains or twisted thing. The becoming of the Fly, David Cronenberg's The Fly, the way he becomes it's similar in versions later where he gets disfigured by someone or something and becomes this monster and becomes this larger than life. It's a very powerful feeling. That's why I think it stands the test of time too. Yeah.
So after they get this story, they decide to go check out Box 5 to see what's going on. They meet this woman there who I think is supposed to be Madame
Giry.
Yeah. Right. So this old lady who's, she works there in the opera house, and they ask her what the deal is. And she says, well, I've only seen this cloaked guy, in there who covers his face.
Right.
He never talks.
Different people's points of view of what he looks like. It's awesome.
Yeah, everybody has their own kind of limited experience with the Phantom.
Yeah.
So I love this. This again scary. Like they go into the room. There's some kind of figure sitting there in the chair with a cloak and his back to him. Doesn't move. And they're like, they already are like,
right.
He hasn't. Again, Lon Chaney has not moved a muscle. He's sitting in a chair, facing away from you, and he's terrifying.
Yes,
and
that's right. They peek in. I'm sorry, it'd been a minute since I said, but they peek in, and you see you see a silhouette. It's fucking scary. It might be the same kind of scary feeling as the unmasking, but I remember that was really scary when I first saw it on VHS. I was like, oh no, there he is! Like, oh shit.
Yeah, and they know enough to like back out of the room, but then they go back in and he's gone.
Right. He's gone. So he's playing and that's one of the wonderful things about the Phantom of any version is that the Phantom is a master not just of disguise, but he's also a master at setting traps and fooling people, and he's a magician. The Phantom is a magician. That's the other thing, especially in this version. He is a magician, so he can make rooms move and doors open, and he's just wild. And, he practically designed the opera house. That's another thing about the more faithful versions of Phantom is that he knows his way around the place, so he could do whatever the hell he wants.
Right. He built it this way to be able to do this.
Right. He did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, they're pretty wigged out by this. So the ballet is over. The curtain comes down, and we go backstage. There's this great shot of a rat running down the stairs.
Yeah.
And we see shadows of all the ballerinas, which is a cool, just again, use of like light and shadow in a black and white movie. Mm-hmm. It's still creepy, even though these are just shadows of ballerinas. And we're backstage. They'll use this set a couple of times with this enormous like dragon face at the back.
Right. They're
creepy.
They're underground, I think, at that point. Are they not? Or are they just I guess they're just backstage.
I think this is at the first level of backstage. There's many sub levels.
And that's what I love about this version and the Charles Dance version. There's so many different places you can go. He could be anywhere. Yes, the dragon. So that's what I was talking about. Is that giant face is scary. It's got these bulging eyes. It's got that I've used it once or twice in my scripts, just something similar. And it almost looks like that's what his face looks like. That's kind of what I like about it too, is that it's like, oh shit, maybe he looks like that. Scary stuff.
Yeah, and so they're hanging around, and there's like a door. The dragon's mouth is open,
right?
And behind it that you can't see until it opens. There's a door back there that opens, and there's again the Phantom's silhouette. The girls freak out. They go talk to this guy who's like, I guess the comic relief. He sort of looks like a mime.
Yeah, he looks right. He's the comic. I forget his name. It's not Joseph Bouquet, but it's the other guy he's a scaredy cat. So he's gonna get, he's like, oh jeepers, don't go back there. That's kind of the impression that you get from him.
Yeah, again, this is a good thing it's silent, so he doesn't say that.
Well, you need to have comic relief. You need to have humor. I mean, there were versions where it was played very serious. I mean, this movie was booed a few times until they finally got the version I think we're talking about now. And this was the one that had the comic relief, because apparently it was quite boring without the comic relief, from what I'm understanding.
And it helps, again, kind of modulate the tone a bit. So it's more interesting.
Right.
But yeah, so now they start, commiserating about, what the Phantom looks like.
Yes.
And there's, like, oh, I saw him. He had no nose. And the other person's like, yes, he did. It was enormous.
It was a big nose.
So who knows what they've seen?
Right. Could be a mask. They could have, but what's scary too is one of them, I think might be Joseph Bouquet. I can't remember, but he saw him without the mask.
Yeah, we're about to meet Joseph.
And I'm jumping the gun because I get excited.
Yeah. So before we go to talk to Bouquet, just before that, we're almost there. But Ledoux enters.
Yes.
And again, so this is a substitute.
Another scary shot.
Yeah, this is a substitute for this character we've mentioned before, the Persian in the book.
Yes.
Who is, again, as we said, Eric the Phantom sojourned for a while in Persia. Again, learning and honing his architecture and magic crafts and stuff, and at some point he got in sideways with the Shah and was going to be killed until this guy saved him, and so Eric owes him a life debt, and so is willing to tolerate him up to a point
in the book.
This is all in the book, and his story function is one to kind of, you got to have at least one person who kind of knows what's up with Eric to move the story along, and to help Raoul, who Christine's boyfriend, we'll meet in a minute.
Yes.
So this character is a kind of a version of that. In the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical It's Madame Giry, they kind of collapse this into
Right,
her
it
character.
was Madame Giry in that, yeah.
Right.
Even in the Gerard Butler version, I remember. He can't sing, but he was a good casting choice. Anyway.
I will disagree, but today's not the day for that. But anyway.
Look, it's not a good movie, okay?
Yeah, no, it's not.
Way, okay?
But
I would agree with you there.
Yeah. So anyway, so Ledoux enters, he looks around and leaves, and people are wondering, well, maybe this guy's the Phantom. He's lurking around the opera house. Who the fuck is he? He's not in the cast. Like, what's he doing there?
Right. And he just stands there. So it is kind of like a nice red herring because you don't know much about him. The way it's lit, again, very scary lighting. You talked about kind of the faces in the dark, and I remember as a kid seeing the VHS and being like, I was like, oh, who the fuck is this guy? Because he's very
creepy
stoic.
enough on his own.
He's creepy. He's got his face is. I think it was an American actor, but the way they kind of made him up, he looks like a very mysterious, freaky looking guy with these kind of wandering eyes.
Yeah, they do a lot to like put a lot of shadow under his eyes to make him look a little like.
Well, that's
gaunt.
how Chaney did his tricks.
Right. So now they go to talk to Joseph Bouquet, who's a stagehand, who they're going to go talk to him because he claims to have actually seen the Phantom, as we'll find out. Yeah. He's right.
Yes.
And I love that he's seated and he's just holding this wax head, this very realistic looking.
It's
terrifying. It looks like a severed head.
A bearded man's head. Really, I think, right? I think it's a bearded man, yeah.
I can't remember what kind of head it is, but because my brain was just going like, oh, what a great choice. It's so unnerving.
It touches the head and then the eyes open. And of course, the comic relief guy's like, oh.
Like, yeah, obviously this is just a piece of like stagecraft. It's a prop.
Yeah, but it looks like a real head.
They could have had him holding anything.
Yeah.
And I love the directorial choice to do this because, again, it puts you ill at ease while he's doing this. So he talks about his encounter with the Phantom and he describes what Eric looks like with a fair amount of accuracy.
Yes. No nose. And, he had no nose and,
yellow parchment skin stretched over his skull.
Which is pretty much the description of his face in the book.
Right. This is, again, exactly what borrowed from the LaRue text.
Right.
And he says, ghosts like not, or somewhere, I forget, he says or someone else says, ghosts like not to be seen or talked about.
Yeah, the comic relief says, stop talking. He's scaring him. He's like, cut it out. Ghosts like to not be seen or talked about. It's the scaredy cat comic relief guy says that to Bouquet. He's like, that's enough of that. And he's like, I can't take this shit anymore.
Yeah, there's a version of the scene in the Weber, and Madame Giry turns to Joseph Bouquet and is like, hold your tongue, like, again, like, shut up. This is going to work out badly for you.
Right.
And so he says, I'm going to show you where I saw him. He was at this the scene dock, meaning this is like where they store scenery.
Right.
In the third cellar. So we're going 3 levels down.
Let's go downstairs. Yeah, it gets creepier as you go downstairs. This is spooky stuff.
Right. And so they go down to this area and they... he's kind of holding court there, but they do see a shadow. Everybody screams silently and runs.
Yeah.
Back upstairs.
Right.
And we get some kind of comic businesses, like the comic relief guy goes up one of the trap doors, to the stage or area and back down.
And then you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Get off the stage.
Goofy stuff.
Goofy stuff.
And we're going to go to some more comic relief stuff now because the owners are meeting with the world's worst stage mother. This is Carlotta's mom. This is something that was definitely shot later and added into the film.
Okay.
But
sense.
It's helpful. So she's there to basically tell these people who have owned the theater for less than 24 hours, I don't care. I got this note from the Phantom. We see the note, basically saying, Carlotta is not going to sing, or bad things are going to happen.
Right.
And she basically says, F this, Carlotta's going to sing.
Right.
Cut to title card saying Carlotta did not sing. She was mysteriously ill.
Right.
So Christine Daae took the gig.
And her intro. Yeah. And so now we finally get her intro.
Yeah. And the introduction to Christine Daae is she is singing opera. I think they do a good job. Again, a silent movie. They have to sell she's singing opera.
Right.
I think they sell it. I love the production of this. So it's a production of an opera called Marguerite.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this scene where she's literally like an angel rising, flying up on wires or whatever they're using.
Right.
But it looks like it's something out of like a medieval tapestry. It's really cool.
Yeah, I remember that. That was the her intro. I had actually forgotten about that. Thanks for reintroducing me. But it was I remember the palette, and I remember that there are people they're all hanging in the air, I think, and then she comes up and it's all angelic white, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I remember that. That was an intro. I remember that intro now. It's
it's
wild.
It's really evocative, and it's one of those things that you can imagine going to an opera in the late 1800s.
Right.
Like this is dazzling, stagecraft at this time, and like there's something cool about it. Like it's really just you kind of feel it, even though it's again silent. You're not hearing any opera at all.
Well, the production value, the design, I think this movie back in 1925 was $650,000. I think that was what the total budget was. For back then, that was a mega budget
That's huge.
film.
Yeah.
That was a massive movie. So that is one of the things that works about this film too, is and many versions of Phantom, is they pretty much spare no expense when it comes to production design. Because a movie like this, you have to feel every moment of the opera and have the different set pieces. And they did a wonderful job with the 25 version and the Claude Rains. But this was my first intro to it, so I was in love with the whole thing.
Right. And we meet Raoul here, who's Christine's suitor, the Vicomte de Chagny.
Yep.
And he's sitting in the box watching Christine, and a friend is asking him about her mysterious admirer she supposedly has.
Right.
And he says, nothing will interfere with our love. And this person says, well, I hear a lot of rumors. Be careful. But Christine gets a big standing ovation, like it's a good night for her. So Raoul goes to visit her at her dressing room. He gives her a big hug, kisses her hand. He says, at last you've realized your ambition, and now we will be married. So we're moving this along quick.
Yeah.
And
it's like let's have a big sex scene, but they cut it. No, I'm just kidding. That's not true. They never did.
No, what she tells him is, she seems happy with this, but she says, I can never leave the opera. You must forget our love. He kisses her, but he leaves, and she looks sad.
Yeah.
Although he does hang around outside the dressing room.
Yeah, this is the famous, this would be where the famous musical piece is in the Phantom of the Opera musical. This is the big number, but it still works for this as well.
Yeah, and this is a little more faithful to the book in terms of when certain beats happen. The Weber musical moves things around slightly. So, for example, right after this in the Weber musical is when the Phantom takes her down to his lair.
Right.
That won't actually happen until after the chandelier falls.
That's
here.
right.
So things are a little different if that's the version you're used to. But
no, I know. There's so many versions. That's what's happening to me right now. But I do remember seeing it on VHS.
Yeah. So she hears something, and the voice of an angel from behind the walls. And this is the first time we get a better look at the silhouette of the Phantom.
And it's weird. It's like you kind of see the mask and you see something covering but you see the silhouette. I remember that, yeah.
Well, so we can talk. We haven't seen it yet. This is one of the scary, like in terms of like the mask itself being scary. Mm-hmm. It's scary as fuck.
It is.
Like it's this
expressionless.
It's this white porcelain mask that goes from basically just below the nose up to the forehead.
It's half a face.
It's the upper half instead of the Weber right half of the face.
Yeah.
And the eyes are like painted on, sort of. You really can't see where he's looking at any point. It's very unsettling. And where the mouth would be, he's got this piece of white gauze or fabric kind of hanging over it to cover his mouth. But it moves
with
anytime.
Very good reason. And by the way, it's the only time they've ever done this is this version where you have a gauze covering the mouth. Every other version is the full-on mask or a different kind of mask. There's no gauze in it. This is scary because it's like, what the fuck's down there? What are you doing?
You're right. What's wrong with his mouth?
What's wrong with you, man?
Yeah, and so you can see the gauze kind of flaps with his breath. As he talks. So you can detect that, once you've seen the movie, what it looks like. The silhouette, you can see that happening in the shadow.
Right.
And it alone, again, just a shadow.
Yeah.
Creepy.
Yes, it is. It is. And it was the same, when I saw it as a kid and you see the silhouette. I mean, I was kind of transfixed. You can't take your eyes off it, but you just don't. Very little detail is given, but you see enough of the mask and you could see the hat. He's wearing the hat at this point. Always love a good hat. Phantom needs a hat. He's got a nice kind of smaller fedora, but yeah, it's a good first impression, and you're starting to get deeper into the story and more kind of more intimate between him and Christine finally.
Yeah, and I love the body language here again because we're only seeing a shadow. It's all body language and obviously no sound. But yeah, you can see his hand up and he's gesturing with this grandiosity,
right?
That fits his kind of narcissistic megalomania kind of vibe, because what he says is, I place the world at your feet. All Paris will worship you. You forget all worldly things and think only of your career and your master. all the red flags
really
of the world.
A prelude to Scientology is what it was.
Yeah.
Forget everything. Forget only your or politically speaking, similar. No, but it's awesome. But hey, I mean, when you're a kid and you see something like this, and even to this day, I mean, he's kind of earned the right to be the Phantom of the Opera. I mean, he is this larger than life character who's, I mean, he practically is a ghost until you find out he's, you know, human underneath. But he's the way he works and malfunctions. It is kind of like a Batman thing.
And it's such a I love how like well observed this is for. I mean, this obviously comes straight from the original LaRue. Like this is such a great example of what like you would now think of as like gaslighting. You know that term because that he's doing all this classic abuser stuff. He's gaslighting her. He's telling her, you know, you're gonna give up all your friends and you're, you know, disconnect all your.
Now you give me your credit card number.
Right.
Oh, credit cards haven't been invented yet. Never mind.
Yeah, like anyone who's like gets in a relationship with you and tells you you need to abandon all of your pre-existing relationships.
Definitely
like,
working against Raoul for sure.
Yeah, like all red
here.
flags. Yeah, all this. And again, his saying, "You owe me," you know, all this shit. It's just like classic abusive boyfriend stuff. It's so well observed.
Yeah.
And this is the one that a piece of dialogue that stuck out with me. Soon the spirit will take form and command your love.
That's right. Yeah,
that makes your skin crawl.
I know. It's this whole thing with Phantom and Christine, the level of love. This he, you know, wants her. The Claude Rains version, the original version of it before they kind of redid the script, was that the Phantom was her father. There have been versions of that as well. So he has different levels of love, but in this one, the Phantom, never loved by his mother. Never kissed by anybody. So he doesn't, he completely wants this woman. It all comes down to her singing, that he's infatuated with the singing and then the woman herself. And he's
at least like 30 years older than her.
Sure.
There's like, creepy stuff there.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Phantom should be played by Leonardo DiCaprio.
Right. So anyway, he leaves. He's, call for me when you will. I shall be waiting.
Yeah. I'll be right here.
So we cut back. There's another letter to Carlotta's mom from the Phantom, warning her again, do not sing or there will be a great misfortune.
That's right.
And she thinks that
I think she thought it was bullshit.
Well, she thinks Christine's friends are plotting, the
it's
Raoul's
a prank,
behind it.
Something.
Right. Whoever it is who doesn't want her to sing is not the Phantom. It's someone much more
right. Nobody takes the Phantom seriously until somebody dies. That's usually what happens in every version.
Yeah, and I love that. So, as they're talking, you see Lon Chaney's hand come out from behind the wall somewhere and drop a note. And again, it's just his hand. Even with just his hand, he's scary.
They picked the right guy. I mean, the man had to, learn sign language, and this is the way he communicated with his parents. And again, who better than this person to play the Phantom? He had done the Hunchback already, the 1923. And he we knew he was the man of 1,000 faces. Then he brought his own makeup box and that he would torture himself. And I'll save it for the unmasking scene. But who better? He was kind of the master of expression and a perfect mimic and sort of a mime. And who better than him to be the Phantom, who really possessed all those things?
Yeah. Well, the note from the Phantom is ignored.
Kidding. We have more movie.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
I thought they were just going to leave and then we fade out. Okay.
Nope. So Carlotta sings. And she's there. She's holding a mirror on stage, and then the lights start to flicker. And we kind of talked about that scene in Jaws where the kid gets eaten as this perfect kind of there's lots of misdirection. There's this, but it's this reminded me of that so much in terms of there's a lot of something bad's going to happen. What's the Phantom exactly going to do? Where is he? What's going to the tension building here is every bit as
this is pre, I mean, he was already working, but this is pre, American version of Hitchcock. So the building of suspense was always great in this movie too. And it's I'm glad you bring it up because even like you said, from the beginning of the movie where you see shadows and it's all a feeling of unease. And right here, it's kind of at the maximum. So the lights are flickering. I will say what's to come, Rupert Julian, I had read that he was not experienced enough. He thought that I'll tell you What happens then, Doug?
Well, what happens?
What
is,
happens that's so important?
This might again one of the most memorable, memorable pieces of the story. He gets his revenge by dropping the entire chandelier down onto the crowd, and I love when he does this.
Big ass chandelier.
Chandelier. He says, "Behold, she is singing to bring down the chandelier," and instead of putting it on its separate title card,
right,
they put
it's over his
silhouette.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is cool, like because every once in a there's a handful of times in the movie where they break the standard silent movie title card convention. Right. This is one of them,
right?
And it conveys something different of like, okay, he's really like screaming this out to the crowd,
right?
Somehow that comes across, even though again, silent movie.
Oh yeah, and it's amazing, and the chandelier sequence is amazing in this film. And most Phantoms nail the chandelier sequence, but this one was the first. I mean, this is the first time everybody knows Phantom of the Opera. This is the first time they ever did this. This was the first movie, so they were kind of flying by the seat of their pants, but this was a technical achievement.
Yeah, well, I will note check you on that in one way, which is there actually is a silent Phantom of the Opera that predates this one.
Oh, I had read about it in the book that you have.
Right, there was a German one, but all done.
He wasn't disfigured though. He was like a different.
I don't know. Well, yeah, I don't know much about the movie itself. All I know is that there was a silent Phantom of the Opera that was done in Germany. But the print is lost, and so it's lost to time.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, and the other thing I would mention is, so this is based on a real event. The chandelier did not crash down on anybody, but one of the counterweights did.
Was this the fire? There was an opera house fire?
No fire. It just this. I think what had happened there, it had been a fire, which is what it had like damaged the rope holding the counterweight.
Wow.
But it didn't actually fall on anybody till a good chunk of time later, and it did kill the poor woman below. This was one of the stories that LaRue heard that inspired the book. So little piece of history.
I'm getting schooled in the best way because that makes me more fascinated with it.
Yeah, really interesting. Anyway, and the filming of this is one of those things where they filmed it slowly and undercranked the camera and then played it back at full speed, so it looks like they're dropping it on these poor extras.
Right, but my point is, once it crashes or it's about to crash, I believe Rupert Julian wanted to have it fade out and cut to black, and the camera operator or whoever was in charge aside from Julian said, no, we don't have to do that. This was an example of Julian's inexperience making the film. So they found a way to have it crash down and still not fade out, but show the aftermath with the lights and everything like that. So this was an example of somebody else telling Julian, we can do this. You don't have to just cut to black. So he was a little outmatched. This was an example.
Yeah, and there's something very cool about how like almost blunt this is. It almost feels like you're watching footage of it really happening.
I know, because back then, I mean, yeah, it's a full on. It's like train leaving the station. It's just like the famous train crash scene that they had done. This is like just kind of watching it.
Yeah, it's not like, I think, say when you watch the Gerard Butler movie, for example, it's more like the camera's swooping around and the score is going nuts, and then there's none of that. It's just like boom, falls.
Yeah, I mean that kind of music, to emphasize it. But no, it does the right thing, and I'm sure audiences in 1925 or whatever the hell year it was were thrilled
and gasping. Because this leads to exactly what you expect: pandemonium. Everyone is running around, fleeing. There's this moment quickly where Raoul and Ledoux see each other and kind of size each other up for just a second. We get this shot of I think it might be the area where the big dragon set is, and you see Lon Chaney kind of run across a plank, like he's not the floor level.
It's a silhouette of him, I think.
Yeah, we don't really get a good look at him until in a bit.
No.
So he, we go to Raoul's he's at Christine's dressing room. He enters. There's no one there, so he decides to hide.
Yes.
The doorknob turns, and Christine now comes into the dressing room, and the Phantom is there again, behind wherever he is.
Right, it's a similar shot setup from what I remember.
Right, and he says, "I have come for you," and she says, "I am ready, master, waiting." And he says, "Walk to your mirror." The mirror opens like a door. This big mirror in her dressing room, and she walks through it. and it closes just as Raoul is trying to get in.
Yeah,
and
it's all
can't.
cranked up, so he's trying to like open the thing. This was obviously one of the biggest scenes in the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical was the Phantom of the Opera theme.
Well, yeah, in the stage musical, they kind of do this illusion that makes it look as if she literally walks through the mirror.
Yeah, the mirror, and it was really cool. But this was as good as it could have been in 1925. This is a great production.
Yeah, and this is where things turn creepy. Like much more creepy than they had been.
Are you kidding? There's more creepy stuff.
Way more creepy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
she's now standing there in the dark unlit space behind her dressing room.
Yes.
Just kind of like beaming and thinking. And Phantom's not just like standing there saying hello, nice to meet you.
No, her eyes are. I remember this. She's kind of like erotically transfixed on the whole situation or something, or glowing or something.
Yeah, she's kind of she's excited. This is
she's under a spell, I think.
They sell that a bit. She's a little naive and in his thrall.
Yeah,
and you just see a hand come out of the darkness and like touch her on the shoulder.
Fucking scary. Yeah.
That's fucking scary. Then she turns around and sees him with his mask on.
Yeah, and so do we for the first time.
And that's fucking scary.
Yeah, I mean Mary Philbin. I don't know. I mean maybe. I know you don't remember every detail of the chat, but I don't know if she was allowed to see him with the mask. I know she wasn't allowed to see him with the mask off until they shot the scene. I know that.
Yeah, no one was.
Well, no one was. Everybody. I mean, there's a story I could tell you later, but yeah, this must have been quite scary for even a silent film actress like Mary Philbin to be in Lon Chaney's presence, in the sense that he knows how to scare people. And this probably was no exception. I'm sure she felt pretty, I don't know how at ease she was.
Yeah, I mean her acting usually in this film it's good. It's kind of presentational in the again I guess I'll call them the softer moments. But then when like horror things start happening, like she seems genuinely scared, and like I would be too. Yeah,
with good reason.
Yeah, and he tells her,
what's up, baby? No, he doesn't say that.
No, he
doesn't say that?
He does not say that. He says, he's leading her down the steps, and he says, "Oh, look not upon my mask. Think rather of my devotion, which has brought you the gift of song."
Right. Right. That's right. I remember that.
Like, because again, in his mind, of course, he's been planning this for a very long time. This is finally his chance to seduce this woman. And like he knows the mask is fucking scary, but it's better than what's underneath.
Yeah, and every time, I will say there's this thing that keeps happening where every time he mentions his mask, that doesn't work well for her. Then she's going to want to be curious to know what's underneath it. So, he really should shut the fuck up about the mask.
Yeah, he tries to be dignified and like keep up this this angel of music persona, but like now he's a physical person standing in front of her. He's not a voice.
The tone changes in the film. It keeps getting creepier, but yes, it's no longer like you said, the art of the illusion. Although I've always loved the illusion side of the Phantom, that he is, like I said, a larger than life character.
Yeah, and it's different. Like again, like he's presenting this illusion this entire time, but now there's a flesh and blood like man living behind the walls wearing a creepy mask, and it's like that illusion only goes so far.
It's a squatter. Yeah.
Yeah, super, super creepy. So we get this very evocative sequence as he leads her down and down and down, and things get surreal because there's a horse down there. He puts her on, and
he's got a white. I think it's like a white horse or something, but it's waiting down there, and then he gets her. Obviously gets into the boat, and it's like Jesus. There's really a lot. I mean, there were real places like this under the Paris Opera House for sure.
The lake is real.
The lake is real. I mean, I don't know. I've been to the actual Paris Opera House when I was doing Rush Hour 3, and I actually spent some time in there, once again just standing there taking it all in, not being able to go underground obviously, but seeing all the corridors and seeing all the different places behind where the stages are. And yeah, it's an incredible thing. So this is the stuff of legend to me, is that he always leads her down into the underbelly, like his own version of hell, which can be an enchanting place. I mean, he makes it enchanting, of course, until the mask comes off, spoiler, but
yeah, so the lake...
Interesting place.
The real lake is the product of the fact that this thing is built near the Seine, and when you go deep underground, the water comes in. They needed a way to contain that. So that's what this actually is in real life. And like modern day firefighters in Paris use it to train for like scuba diving and stuff. I don't know if tours take tourists down to see it, even though I would imagine, like, if I was going to Paris Opera House, I'm like, yeah, let me see that thing. I want to see it.
I think it's closed off. I know it was things were closed off when I went. Of course, the Seine, I mean, is kind of the stuff of Phantom Legend too, because in the Claude Rains, when he gets acid thrown in his face, where does he jump? He jumps into the Seine to cool off and wash it out. It doesn't work. He's kind of ugly, but...
Yeah, it's just an evocative idea, right?
And very gothic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like capital G gothic.
Yeah.
As he puts her in the boat, and he's like kind of beckoning her, and then he's kind of like half dragging her, and she's again, she seems like she's almost in a trance through this whole thing. It's almost balletic the way this is shot, and again, like crazy like lighting and German expressionism all over the place. Like
and the sets are magnificent. I mean, these were all built, and this is, I think, in fact, in one shot later in the Phantom, you can actually see the Notre Dame church, or I'm sorry, the cathedral from the original Hunchback of Notre Dame. So these were very, very detailed Universal sets, and they spared no expense. $650,000, I tell you.
Yeah.
Back then, Jesus.
Yeah, and then we even get a title card that talks about like down and down to the Black Lake, a black lake hidden from man and the sun, leading to the Phantom's rendezvous. And we watch this from a distance as this makes everything feel so much more cavernous. That when he puts her on the boat and like rows, it's kind of like a gondola he uses to bring her down to this little dock that is where his lair is. And the door opens on its own, and he makes her go in first. He follows in from behind.
Yeah,
and we're now in his lair, which is like
it's fantastic.
It's kind of lavish, yeah.
Well, it is. That's what I've always loved about the Phantom too. Is that it's like if the guy's going to be the Phantom, he might as well like deck out his crib and be as lavish as possible. He is the Phantom after all. So he's got to make an impression to whatever ladies he invites over to. Seduce.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely like has a taste for.
Not that I agree with it. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm saying this is what he does as a character, and it's pretty lavish.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, he has a taste for the finer things, and like
connoisseur.
He's compensating, obviously,
for something.
And this is not touched on in this movie, but it's definitely in the book and in other versions. The idea that he is extorting the theater owners for an immense sum of money every month that they have his quote unquote salary.
So now we know where it goes.
Right. This is where it goes.
Yeah.
So she's nervous. She kind of backs onto a chaise. He like smells her dress or something.
Yeah.
And he says, "I have brought you 5 cellars underground because I love you."
Yeah.
She is horrified.
That's devotion.
And he says something about, "For long weary months I have awaited this hour, so that which is good within me, aroused by your purity, might plead for your love." She runs. He blocks her.
Yeah.
This is like, again, he does this a lot. He kind of talks about this idea of like, if there is good in him, it's because she brings it out in him.
Right.
Otherwise, he is a devil, and it's...
You're right, which he believes, and kind of true. I mean, that's pretty much every version of the Phantom of the Opera. Even, it was really, really touched upon in the Charles Dance Phantom of the Opera, the made-for-TV, which was awesome film, really emotional. Phantom of the Paradise, the rock and roll version by De Palma, Winslow Leach, who becomes the Phantom of the Paradise, believes that Phoenix, the singer, can bring out the good in him, and so. There is that sort of dynamic in every version. I think that's one of the reasons it makes it emotional, is that he's craving maybe to see the good in himself too.
Well, there's also kind of a narcissism there where it's like he can't take responsibility for things. So it's sort of like, if I'm good, it's because you made me good.
Well,
if I'm bad, it's because the world has made me this way. There's no like, I chose to murder people with a chandelier.
No, the world is made, right. Aside from the horrible birth, but
Right. So she runs the other way behind some curtains or through a door into the coffin room, where he just calmly says, "That's where I sleep." It keeps me...
It's terrifying.
Oh my God. Yeah. It keeps me reminded of that other dreamless sleep that cures all ills forever. Like he's... part of him wants to die.
Part of him does want to die, and again, kind of a staple of the Phantom is that, there's the threat of dying of a broken heart, and for all we know, he might.
Right. And so she finally points at him and says, "You are the Phantom." And he kind of...
And this is terrifying.
And he recoils and he says, "If this is where I was talking about." Yeah, you can't
see his expression under his mask.
You can see like he's like, yeah, she knows.
Yeah.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
You know, she's not that stupid.
Yeah.
But this is where he says that thing I was talking about. He says, "If I am the Phantom, it is because man's hatred has made me so. If I shall be saved, because your love redeems me. Mm-hmm. Men once knew me as Eric, but for many years I have lived in these cellars, a nameless legend." Mm-hmm. At this point, she just passes the fuck out. And so he picks her up and puts her on... there's another room that the bed is not a coffin. It's actually a big boat. Which I don't know how he got that down there, but it's very just again lavish and interesting.
Maybe he had he might have had an assistant or somebody he hired for temp work. He could have used TaskRabbit.
Right. Yeah. It's a great set though, because again they could have just made it any old bed, but the fact that it's a boat is just kind of interesting.
Fantastic production design in this version, and again there was fantastic production design in the Charles Dance version and the Claude Rains version, although that was a little more cavernous. And it's always a kick to see kind of what they have in store for the Phantom's Lair, because there have been so many versions of Phantom of the Opera. So this one was great. Yeah, the boat bed where he sleeps, and of course the giant organ that occupies the lair. And there's just so many iconic things in this version. Yeah.
So we go to just a brief shot of bustling outside the opera house, and we get a newspaper headline that talks about another Phantom tragedy, and Christine Daae has vanished. So this is actually setting up kind of what will happen at the end of the movie, but just letting us know that like the general population is kind of keyed into what's going on at the opera house, and they're not happy.
No, they're not, and this is kind of, especially later, but this really becomes kind of a universal staple, which is that, kind of a mob is slowly forming. People are slowly putting things together and, saving the princess in distress kind of deal. And I think this would have been an earlier version of it. I'm not sure if it was used in like Nosferatu, the 20s version, the 20 version, but this is kind of an early... I mean, this would be used again and again in, especially that ending. Many Universal movies to come would be the kind of the slow forming of a mob. Hey, there's Frankenstein's monster. Let's go get him.
Right. So we get another title card.
Of course we do.
Of course we do, because that's the only way to do it in a silent movie. Yeah. And it says, "The night passed, a night of vague horrors, tortured dreams." Again, what's coming. Yeah. So much with one sense, shades of Simon's Quest. What a horrible night to have a curse. But I loved, again, like the use of language in these cards. Like they make every word count. Like what a great, creepy thing.
There were screenwriters back then. There were writers back then, and good ones. And I know, having seen the VHS several times, I mean, I'd seen it again, but I know what's coming now.
Yeah. So she wakes up. She takes a second to sort of take stock of where she is. Yeah. She gets up. She sees there's many pairs of shoes laid out for her. There's flowers on the desk nearby. There's a wedding dress sitting there.
The guy knows what he wants. Mm-hmm. We can at least sympathize with that.
Yeah, there's a hand mirror with her name on it, and there is a note that says, "You are in no peril as long as you do not touch my mask."
Yeah, just had to point it out.
So now we get to the most famous scene in this movie. I think, for my money, probably the best scene in the movie.
It's the best, but also thinking, coming over for tonight, I was also thinking about how this is also an early version of a jump scare. This really is a jump scare, because that would... Ben Gardner's head in Jaws and The Ring and how many movies have had jump scares? I'm pretty sure this was the OG, and we'll get into what's happening. But this
it is the OG, the opera ghost.
Well, hey, that's a good one. I like that. It's TOG, the opera. No, no, this was this to this day can't be duplicated the way it was done. About what we're about to discuss.
Yeah. And I love that they take their time with this. So again, the note about don't touch the mask, of course, classic horror. Don't push the big shiny red button.
Right. Don't feed them after midnight.
Yeah. So she hears the organ playing. And like the music, once again, like this is his one like thing that could endear you to him is his musical talent. Mm-hmm. So like because she drops the note and she has like a smile on her face. She's like, "Oh right, yeah, I might be 5 cellars down with this ghoul, but hey, he plays
This
mean
guy's
organ.
good. This guy's good.
So we see he's playing his opera Don Juan Triumphant.
Yes.
Which, again, Don Juan, a reference to a very famous lover, so we know what he thinks of himself.
Right.
And one of my favorite things in the Weber version, just to, again, go on a quick tangent, is I love that you get to hear it, right? You actually get to hear, like, what does this sound like?
Right.
And I love Andrew Lloyd Webber's music for that, because it's beautiful, but it's also really discordant. And it's
Right.
like, yes, this is the product of this guy's mind.
Right. They have to make it, a little bit darker with those tones. I have the soundtrack, but it's, because it's the Phantom's version of poetry.
Right. And he says, since first I saw your face, this music has been singing to me of you and of love triumphant. Yet listen, there sounds an ominous undercurrent of warning.
I think she goes for the mask early, and then he kind of introduces, yet listen. I think she tries to do it, and then he kind of like, oh, by the way. And she's like, oh, shit.
Yeah. And then, there's a little bit of a like, don't do that.
Yeah.
But he is kind of just enraptured himself with the music he's playing. So she does there's like a 1 and a 2. Like, she reaches first and she kind of backs off, and then she reaches it, and then finally, she whips the mask off, and it's staged brilliantly because we see it first. She doesn't, right? Because he's facing the camera and she's behind him. And
the camera's right on him.
Yeah.
So we're looking at him as the mask is removed. She's behind him, and Mary Philbin, like, for a fact, did not know what he looked like. She was not allowed. I'll try to make this quick, but there was I think that one of the people working on the film, Lon Chaney, I think invited him to his dressing room or something, just to talk to him or whatever, and I know that Chaney turned around in full makeup and scared the shit out of the guy. And he's like, "Why the hell did you do that?" And Chaney's like, "Well, because you told me everything I need to know." He had an effective makeup. So yes, he is revealed to the world, and and people are fainting in the audience in 1925. And I know that people were allowed to have smelling salts. They offered smelling salts.
They told theaters to carry it.
To carry the smelling salt. That's like carrying barf bags, when you're watching The Terrifier or something. And I don't know. Should I get into what Chaney did to his face?
Yeah, go.
Well, the thing recently that I always knew what he did to his face, but the recent rumor that I'm going to dispel is that he used what was called fish skin, which is a kind of a transparent, gluey, plasticky material to tilt his nose up. Now, remember, we're talking about a face that has to look almost like a skull-like face. That rumor that's not true. He did not use fish skin. What he did do was let's start with the nose. So Chaney had an appliance with wires in it. This would cause him to bleed on set a lot. There was somebody who said that he bled a lot on the set. He tortured himself. He stuck wires up his nose to tilt up the nose like a skull, like the nose of a skull, like a noseless skull. And he also painted his nostrils so the lighting would make it look like he had even less of a nose. He put putty on the tip of his nose to give it kind of a more prominent point. There's certain points in the film where the nose drops a little bit, that he looks a little bit more normal because he may not have had the full makeup on. He had a bald cap on. He painted. There's so many. He glued his ears to his head. He made his cheeks more prominent by putting some of that material all over his cheeks. He used grease paint all over his face. He used the material to make the cheekbones a little wrinkled. He had a contraption that he put in his mouth to alter his mouth. I know it's a long one.
No, you're good.
He put a contraption into his mouth with rotted false teeth attached to it. And again, the bald cap, he had lines painted across his forehead, and one over the bald cap, so you couldn't tell where the bald cap ended and his real face began. And with those effects, not to mention his knowledge of lighting and the use of the grease paint, the camera made it look like the man had a skull-like face with these, bulging eyes and these kind of what I like to call, socketless eyes. And it was terrifying. It was terrifying, I think, for even people, I'm sure, in the crew. What the fuck is that? I mean, this guy went all out to create the truest version of the Phantom ever to the Gaston Leroux novel, which is why it stands the test of time. There are makeup artists to this day who worship. I mean, Dick Smith was a famous makeup artist who passed away. Tom Savini, who is known for Splatter, creator, of Jason's look for Friday the 13th, he worshipped Lon Chaney. I saw a documentary on Savini. He worshipped Lon Chaney. What Lon Chaney did to his face in this movie, I think, has inspired countless directors, editors, makeup artists, lighting technicians, everybody. I think everybody's been so inspired by this makeup. So this was this unmasking sequence, which was shot a few times. I know the angles are different because they had different versions. It is, I don't think we'll ever get a moment like that in cinema ever again. What this particular man did to himself for our pleasure, or at least for our scares. I mean, he tortured himself. He fucked his face up, and it shows. It's like, that's why it looks so real, because he turned his face into a skull.
Yeah.
Unreal.
It is,
I'm done.
No. I mean, it is an exceptional piece of makeup work. And as you said, like, all-time iconic. We're still talking about it 100 years later. It's that good.
Right.
And kind of to build on that fact that, again, the cast and the crew did not know what it would look like when they finally did this.
No.
Again, not even the crew, because there's a shot here. Because what happens is she, of course, he turns around, she sees it, she backs away, and genuine horror.
Fear. Yeah.
And we get a kind of a POV shot from Christine as he kind of tilts himself up and points his finger at her.
It's out of focus. It's I wonder what it would look like if it was in focus. He's like, he wanted to, terrifying. I bet they blurred it to not scare people.
Well, this is what I was going to talk about. Because I was curious, like, why is this blurry ass shot in the movie?
Yeah.
Because it's blurry. It's blurry because the cameraman was scared.
That's right.
And he was so scared that he was basically, he just mishandled the camera as he was doing this. And they still use the shot. I love it because it's really evocative of like, it feels like, Christine herself is like,
well, it's like almost her POV of this blurry, like, she's so scared things have gone blurry. Yeah, that's right. I had heard that, I'm sure I would just, I told you there were two sets I would have loved to have been on. One was the Jaws set. The other I had said was the Phantom of the Opera set, the 1925. I would have loved to have been in that room when that happened. They do a little behind the scenes in Man of a Thousand Faces with James Cagney playing Lon Chaney in his biography, which is cool because they're like, and cut. He's like, all right, great. Well, how was that? He's in his makeup. I would have loved to have been in that room. I'm sure that I bet that camera was like, holy shit. It was silent. You could say, it's silent. You could say, Lon, what the fuck? What do you think, guys? What do I look like a... Well, that's why they say Lon Chaney could do everything. And they even said in the documentary, in the biography, Man of a Thousand Faces, don't step on that spider. It might be Lon Chaney.
Yeah. It's incredible. And he approaches her slowly, and then he grabs her and he just laughs in her face.
The way he's like,
yeah,
like he's a fucking. This is one of the scariest moments in cinema. It really is. Just especially if you put yourself into the mind of an audience member in 1925 seeing this shit. I mean, cinema was relatively new even then, and now this, terrifying.
And he says, "Feast your eyes, glut your soul on my accursed ugliness."
Right.
Which is a line I think right out of the book.
Yes.
And then he covers his face with his hands, and he kind of backs off a bit, and he says, Christine, who would not heed my warning. If you love me as you say, let me go. I promise to be your slave forever. I shall prove to you the depth of my love. You may return to your world for the present. You may sing in the opera once more, but remember, you are mine, and you shall not see your lover again. If you do, it is death to you both.
Right.
And then he turns away from the camera and cries.
Yeah, and it's really this is one of the finest acting moments from Chaney. And again, in a silent film, obviously one of the reasons that they're kind of funny now, and they kind of covered this in Singing in the Rain, which is another great one, because that was the silent film industry, is that you have to overact. It really was like a stage play back then, where you have to over emote to really translate to the audience. But Chaney, the acting was still good. He was over emoted, but the Phantom, again, larger than life character, everything Chaney does with his hands, the entire performance, he is the best Phantom. I would say that he is the best Phantom. It's not always it depends on what mood I'm in, what Phantom I want to watch. but he's the OG is the best. He was phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, he really sells. There's so many like layers to this scene. The horror of it, the very human like pain he's in because he knows that like she really won't ever love him, because of how he looks.
Yeah, he knows.
Once again, like this thing that has hounded him his entire life.
Right.
It's happening again.
Right.
To him, her terror of like, this guy I've been like bonding with is now really this like sewer dwelling monster.
Right.
Like all the horror of that.
Yeah.
All in one shot, or one scene. This is by far like the meatiest, most interesting, like cool scene in the movie.
And did we say she's on the floor? I mean, she's so scared she's on the floor. Like that's how scary the scene was. And I'm sure there were audiences like, again, I just would have loved to have been in that theater. It's kind of like when they saw King Kong for the first time in 1933 and the thrill of, seeing him climb the Empire State Building. I think it must have been a similar feeling. Or train leaving the station when people thought, oh my God, there's a train coming out at us. Let's everybody leave the theater, which really happened. But this had to be one of those moments. This is early cinema. I'm repeating myself, but this is once again, like my love of Jaws, the unmasking scene in the Lon Chaney Phantom. I mean, it's right up there with why I love cinema. It is such an iconic, emotional moment on so many levels, like you said.
Yeah. So we finally fade to black from this sad but also horrible
Thank
scene.
God.
Yeah.
It's like, thank God.
And we get a note to Raoul from Christine telling her, I'll be at the masquerade tomorrow, but not alone. So beware. And we get a title card just telling everybody, hey, one night a year, everybody came to the Opera House for this big masquerade ball.
Right.
And we see it. And again, in full color, big deal for 1925.
Yeah.
It looks great.
Yeah.
And it's, even though it's in color, it's kind of mostly black, white, and red, kind of on purpose.
It's their early attempt at color. I mean, this is kind of like their early attempt at sound. So they again, this was a hand painted two strip Technicolor process, or was it one strip? I guess one strip. I mean, I'm mixing I know by the time they got to Claude Rains, which was in glorious Technicolor, and it looks it. I mean, it's such an amazingly colored, beautiful film. But this was an early experiment. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Part of me just wishes and it's kind of like the different tints you say. No, it's like the kind of different tints they used. Part of me almost feels like I wish it was just like a black and white movie that didn't experiment. But again, they're moving forward with technology as we are even to this day. They're avataring it. So this was an early experiment, but it must have been, again, thrilling to see when it came out.
Yeah. And so Christine and Raoul find each other.
Yes, they do.
And we get a card that says, into the midst of the revelry strode a spectral figure in red.
What a costume.
And the whole crowd parts, like somehow they know.
They just know it's the Phantom.
Or, yeah,
at least.
Instinctively to stay away from this guy. In this like glorious kind of Mask of the Red Death costume, which is, of course, a reference to the Edgar Allan Poe story of the same name.
Right.
And Gaston Leroux cited Poe as an influence. So he definitely read that. Like, there's a reason he's putting this Edgar Allan Poe reference into the story.
The mask is phenomenal here because this actually looks like he's wearing a skull. And a skull with kind of bulging eyes. It's terrifying. Once again, the costume design in this film is phenomenal. Like and I love the way the Phantom dresses and the cape, just the way I loved it in the Claude Rains version. But the costume is phenomenal. And if they would pretty much use a very similar palette and costume design for the Andrew Lloyd Webber and other versions. There's a Robert Englund version that I love, the 1989, that has a similar. But this is the OG. This is the original.
Yeah, and to the point where the costuming in the Weber version is very similar to this. Like, they basically copy it for that masquerade sequence. And the Mask of the Red Death, the Poe story, is about a spectral figure that strides into this party and the point of the party is, again, this fictional illness called the Red Death is spreading around. So people are, maybe we can all kind of hunker together and we'll have a party, but everyone here will be immune and we'll avoid it. And of course, Red Death strides in and everybody dies, kind of story. So
Red Wedding.
They're really kind of, LaRue is drawing this connection between like the Phantom and a pestilence that like kills everybody.
Like a plague.
Yeah, he is a plague.
He's a plague.
He's a one-man plague.
On both your houses.
And so he tells the party goers, not anyone in particular, he just tells them, beneath your dancing feet are the tombs of tortured men. Thus does the Red Death rebuke your merriment.
I lad this. I'm sorry. This guy's awesome. Like, I love it just as a bad guy. I mean, who would not want to walk into a party and say those words? Like, that's bad. That's gangsta.
Yeah, he's basically letting everyone know he's the Phantom. And
he says, don't fuck with me, you know.
And then Raoul does something stupid. He unmasks himself.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
At this moment, and Phantom sees him with his mask off.
Like,
probably a bad idea, because who knows if he would know exactly who Raoul was without that.
Right.
Probably. He's pretty crafty. But anyway, Christine leads him away, and Phantom kind of follows in their direction. And we go to another like great set piece of this movie, which is the roof of the Opera House.
Yes.
Which, again, they recreated the real statues that are on the roof of the Paris Opera House.
Right.
For this classic sequence where basically Christina wants to make sure they're alone, and she tells Raoul kind of what's up, where she's been, what happened. And she hopes she's alone. They are not. He is, of course, perched on the other side of the statue, listening to everything with his mask off.
And another phenomenal costume choice, just wearing that Red Death costume with his actual face, which, again, there is not too much of a difference between the skull mask and his real face, but it's terrifying. As a kid, I remember watching, I was like, oh shit, he's got his mask off. He's one ugly motherfucker.
Yeah, and the plan is she's going to sing in the opera Faust tomorrow night.
Yes.
And after the performance, Raoul needs to whisk her away to like England. Get as far away from this guy as
he
possible.
Probably should do it that night, but
why bother with Faust? Get the fuck out now.
Get the fuck out now, But that's a horror movie.
That's a horror movie.
Don't leave the house.
Literally,
let me just
get
keep
out.
Working. Yeah.
And so the Phantom is sitting there on the statue, and he says, he looks distraught. He says, she has betrayed me. And Raoul and Christine kiss, and they leave, and then so does the Phantom. The cinematography on this is so cool with the way his like cape and stuff is just billowing.
Oh yeah,
it's like a comic book.
It's like a comic book. He's on this gargoyle, and he's looking down with the cape blowing, and it's again he's like kind of Batmaning it. But it's it's very very gothic, very scary, and the costume is phenomenal.
Yeah, and so they Christine and Raoul come back down into the opera house. And Ledoux is there, and he basically just says, you should go that way instead of this way.
Right.
And they take the hint. And
right.
They go. Phantom comes through with his mask on.
Yeah, I love that shot. He's like, comes in, he's like, don't fuck with me. Just walk.
Well, there's like two guys that are like dueling or pretending to duel.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like, just get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And one of them goes like, that was the Phantom. And faints.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
So we're with the owners, and they get a note. And this note basically is about who Eric really is. It says he was born during the Boulevard Massacre,
right?
Self-educated musician and master of the black arts, exiled to Devil's Island for the criminally insane.
Yes,
escaped now at large, and this is your man. This is who the Phantom is.
They were so close to kind of making it more of a true Leroux thing that he's even if they didn't show it, they could have said was a magician in Persia or whatever, but I always felt it was a bit of a cheat that he's just a criminal. He escaped Devil's Island. It's a little bit of a cheat for me in this version. This is the moment I like the least, is when they finally say who he is, to be honest with you. Just that he's a guy that escaped from that he's now escaped from Devil's Island, which was for the criminal insane. It's like, oh, so he's just a criminal insane. And again, that goes back to kind of what you're saying, creating this whole facade, and that that he's this larger than life Phantom. There are other versions where he's born with it, and he had this incredible history, and he traveled the world, and he slowly earned his stripes to become this sort of devilish Phantom. But here it's just kind of like, hey, he's just a skull-faced criminal,
Yeah,
a little cheat. I felt.
I agree with you. I think this is a weird shortcut. They could have just given him the backstory from the book, or no backstory.
No backstory would have been better. A little Heath Ledger Joker kind of deal. We don't know where he's from.
But this explains what Ledoux is doing. He is basically the police.
Right, inspector.
That's why he's hanging around. He's trying to solve the case of this escaped criminal.
Right,
and he believes that is the Phantom of the Opera. We get a title card that says at 9:00 the following evening, a mysterious barouche, which is a carriage, stopped on the rotunda side of the opera. And so, we just see this carriage pull up to the side of the opera. We assume this is supposed to be Raoul and his escape vehicle.
Right.
It is not.
It is not. No.
So the opera starts. Raoul visits Christine in her dressing room. She's crying. He wipes her tear away. She says, I've heard his voice once more. He knows our plans. He knows everything.
Mm-hmm. This would have been about the time that they had either written this, or I think they shot it, what would have been Christine visiting her father's grave. I think this would have been about the time that she visited her father's grave, which was in the novel, which was obviously a huge piece in the Andrew Lloyd Webber and Gerard Butler version.
And in the book, she actually goes to visit her father's grave very early in the story.
Yeah, I feel like it was here, though, in this film. Like, I think because with the carriage pulls up. Again, we're talking about major reshoots. We're talking about, 3 different versions of this film that were shot because audiences didn't like one. So it's like, oh, that's all right. We'll shoot it again. We're talking about a screenwriter who had sent the producers, about 3 different versions of the script with pieces of the novel or not so much. So it's amazing the movie actually ended up as, kind of one-pieced and forward as it did. But yes, I digress.
Yeah. So we get a quick shot of the Phantom approaching this carriage outside, and we cut back to Raoul and Christine, and it's a lot more of like, oh, you'll have to save me from this monster, and blah blah blah.
It's becoming kind of like a Universal Monsters movie, I would say, kind of at this point.
Yeah, this is some melodrama.
Yeah,
but we go backstage where there's these giant wheels that are turned, and they reveal there's a shadow of someone who's been hung, and the comic relief guy sees that. And then he runs to go, tell somebody the Strangler has struck again. Yeah. And they return, the shadow is gone. And then they find the body on the floor elsewhere. It's Joseph Bouquet.
It's just right.
And they warn about his Phantom, or Bouquet's brother is there, who we've never met before.
No,
but he says
here we go with kind of different versions, new rewrites, bringing in you mentioned the an entire sequence that was shot for the newer version, and this is probably another one of those things where they're tying it together. I think right here we're starting to have these introductions of different scenes from different versions kind of tying together for what was hopefully the last version, I think, until the sound version in 1929 that was lost also. But yes, that's Bouquet's brother just pops up. It works, but it is kind of funny that we've never seen the guy.
Yeah, and he introduces the concept of the Punjab lasso.
Yes.
Lasso, this is the Phantom's weapon of choice. It is basically a noose that he whips onto your neck and kills you.
Right, which was in the book, and was how he got rid of people. I think in the script version where he was an executioner in the catacombs before the Paris Opera House was built. And this is one of his magician tricks where he comes behind you and strangles you. So that's a kind of an old Phantom lore.
Yeah, it comes right out of the book. I was trying to look up, is this a real thing outside of the book? And no, it's a LaRue invention.
It's a LaRue invention. Actually, I thought it was real.
Nope.
Damn.
Yep. I couldn't find any evidence that this predated LaRue.
Oh, that's too bad.
I'm sure people were strangling each other all kinds of different ways.
Yeah, he did it more artfully.
Yes.
Good for him.
And so, Phantom, we see his hand replace a couple of bottles that are on a table backstage.
Right.
Where, again, a bunch of, stagehands or crew people are kind of working.
Right.
The performance gets underway, and we meet a character. I don't know if he's named in the movie, but it's Philippe, who is Raoul's brother.
Right. There was a version in the Charles Dance version. I keep bringing that up because they use pieces of other movies and definitely the source material. But Philippe was the lover. There was no Raoul, so Philippe was the lover in that movie. So that's interesting. But they must have gotten it from this.
Yeah. So Philippe's there. Basically, he says he's concerned for Raoul's safety.
Good. Get him out of there.
Yeah. And shit's about to get real because we see the Phantom's hands come up and grab the conductor of the orchestra.
That's right.
And just pull him down somewhere.
Yeah.
And he pops out.
Yeah. Christine
screams. The lights go out and Christine is gone.
Yes. This is pretty much past the point of no return. This is kind of like where we are in the musical. I think it's kind of like where he would have gotten rid of the conductor or something, or taken the mask and become the actor and. lured her in.
Yeah, in the Weber version, he kills her co-star, takes his place on stage for that moment. Yeah, and then she unmasks him in front of everybody. That does not happen here.
No, so that's too bad.
Yeah, it's a nice moment in the show.
It is.
But anyway, so she's gone again. Pandemonium. We cut back to those workers backstage near the two bottles. They're all lying down. They could be dead. They could be unconscious, but they're not moving.
Hopefully, probably knock them out. I think he knocked them out.
I don't know. I figure he probably killed him. He's the Phantom. So.
He is the Phantom. You're right.
So Raoul runs to the dressing room with Ledoux, and they figure out the mechanism to open up the mirror door.
Correct.
And Ledoux basically says, "I can take you to Christine if you do exactly as I tell you." And he asks, like, who are you that knows the Phantom's secrets and betrays them?
Right.
And he explains, I'm secret police. I've been studying this guy for months.
Right.
And so he says, I found his hiding place deep within the torture chambers where he himself was confined during the Second Revolution.
That's right.
They do bring in this concept that he was down there at some point.
Yes. And these are remaining pieces of other versions and other screenplay ideas. So it is kind of a mess. Again, it's amazing how it kind of ended up pretty, beat to beat, like pretty solid.
It feels cohesive. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was more cohesive than Batman Returns, but I digress.
Yeah. So he also gives him the warning, of course, hand at the level of your eyes, right? Keep your hand up to the strangler's noose coils quick.
Yeah.
So Raoul's brother is also in the dressing room. He's going to be basically tailing them a little bit.
Yeah, for a little while.
Yeah. So they descend down into the basements, the same path we saw them go down before earlier in the movie. And Ledoux opens up a trap door and he says, discovery of this trap door cost Bouquet his life. Mm-hmm. And they go down, and they're walking through, and we get this face in the darkness. Just it's hard to describe with it. So they're up against kind of the wall, and then there's this black arch that just leads into a tunnel, and coming towards camera is this just kind of glowing face.
Right, and we find out I think it's the rat catcher.
Yeah, it's not. They don't call him the rat catcher here. I think that's what in the book. That's what it is.
Yeah, in a cartoon version that came out too.
Yeah, and so it's weird because it's a face. It's not the Phantom. It's just a guy. But he says, "I am a messenger from the shadows. Turn back ere ye perish." Pirate dialogue.
Yeah, but it works. This was scary, and those scenes very much scared me as a kid, as much as the unmasking scene. Just seeing the faces come out of the dark. I mean, they really do a really good job of having very simple scares, like just point in the camera, just have something come out of the dark, which is always scary.
And it sells this idea that like the levels below the opera house are like supernatural, or like what the fuck is down there?
That's what I love about the Phantom of the Opera. That's what I love, and that he lurks among them, like he's become one of them or something. Yeah,
there's like more entities down here than just him. It's evocative, and again, just just the tip of the iceberg of what could be there.
Right.
So we cut to the Phantom's lair, and he's berating Christine, and basically says, you lied to me. Do you think you and your lover could cheat the Phantom? Ungrateful fool. Yeah. You've spurned the spirit that inspired you.
You bitch.
Yeah. Now you shall see the evil spirit that makes my evil face.
That's right.
No longer in these foul cellars will I secrete the venom of hatred, for you shall bring me love. It's just like,
I know.
Skin fantastic. Crawling. Yeah.
Dialogue. You had me at secrete the angry venom.
Yeah.
I now pronounce you man and no.
Yeah. Never use the word secrete in any conversation.
Yeah, he's mixing up things he wants to do with his anger and his hatred, and he sounds like Palpatine or something.
He's angry. He loves her in his own way, but he's spurned.
You will experience the full force of my love.
Basically, yeah. So Ledoux and Raoul are progressing further, but they fall through a trapdoor into a mirrored chamber.
Yes,
that looks like it's lined with palm trees. Sort of. This is straight out of the book.
Yes, it is. And this is kind of like what he did in Persia.
Yeah, and there's a neat detail in here. This is from the book. They don't really deliberately explain this. There's a noose hanging in the middle of the room.
Right.
This is because this is a torture chamber, but if there is that way out.
There is that way, right.
If you want
have to take turns.
Yeah, and they,
Yeah,
and they
it's
even say
wild.
like, the point of the palm trees, as we'll see in a minute, this room is about to get hot. But because it's mirrored, it makes it almost look like a forest. It goes on
Right.
forever. It's a pretty weird, like surreal.
Well, this is
place.
and he definitely did this in the book, and this is where he could make things look like they went on forever, and like you said, a forest or a jungle or what have you, and it's pretty wild. But this is legendary Phantom stuff.
This is the only version of the story that I think has this
Yes.
torture chamber sequence, and then we'll get to the scorpion and the grasshopper in a minute.
The famous.
All of this stuff is from the book, and yeah, this is the only version that does it.
Except, and then there was a cartoon remake that came out that I've seen that I liked that did it, but it basically duplicated the Lon Chaney.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So it was there too.
So he says to her, a Phantom says to Christine, "I am human like other men. I will not be cheated of my happiness." And then we're introduced to this like alarm system he has. So there's like it's a sconce, but it has what sort of looks like the paws and the upper body of like a lion or a griffin or something.
Yeah.
And the arms just start going up and down,
Yes.
rhythmically up and down.
Yeah.
So that's the signal that like someone is intruding on the lair.
Yes. We'll find out who that is.
It is Philippe. He says,
Yes.
I love that it's like
He's a loud eye. Where are you?
yeah, he's there on the shore of the lake calling for his brother.
Yeah.
And I love the Phantom says, "It seems we have callers."
Yes.
So he takes this tube off of the wall.
Yes.
And he tells her to stay put, and he basically just uses this tube as a snorkel and just goes down into the lake.
Yeah, unmasked. It's nasty watching him go under this bald head. It's like it looks like a skull.
Yeah, it almost wondered like, gee, can he use that snorkel with his teeth, his huge snaggle teeth? I don't know, but
Weird.
We'll assume he can.
We'll assume he can.
Yeah. So Raoul and Ledoux start calling to Christine, and now that he's gone, and she can hear them.
Right.
It turns out this torture chamber is basically right behind the wall where she is.
Right.
They're actually very close.
They're right there.
So she starts exploring, trying to find a way to like help them. Raoul's brother tries to cross the lake. He doesn't see the reed and the bubbles.
No.
And this hand just comes up from the water and pulls him under.
Yep.
Friday the 13th style.
No, it's gnarly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice kind of slasher kill.
Yep.
Drowns his ass.
So Christine is still looking around trying to help them, but we see that the Phantom's reed, the bubbles are he's bubbling his way back.
He's coming back.
Yeah, even though he killed the guy, he's going to come back underwater as well.
Yes.
So she tries to figure out where he keeps the keys, but he comes back looking smug as much as his face will allow him to look smug. Puts his mask back on,
yes,
actually, and Ledoux tells Raoul to like, quiet. And he says, the callers have departed, and he goes back to playing his organ.
Yes.
And he's all dry now.
He's all dry now. Yeah, he's like Michael Caine in Jaws the Revenge. He comes out, he's totally dry. Everything's fine. That's editing. So many different versions of this kind of ending were filmed. I mean, one, he dies of a broken heart right at the organ. Many endings were filmed, but yes, we're going to go with the ending that's coming.
Yeah. So we get a quick shot of the Joseph Bouquet's brother saying he knows the hiding place and his brother will be avenged.
That's right.
They
find his body. I know that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So they cut back to Christine. She snatches a bag off of the wall, which we understand contained the keys to the torture chamber. And Phantom rises from the organ. His hand is outstretched. He wants it back.
Yeah.
Raoul is struggling. And the Phantom appears to hear it, and he goes, "Oh, did you hear voices? Perhaps we have more callers." And he turns on the lights in the torture room. And again, this is one of those things where they use they break the title card convention.
Right.
And it just says heat, intolerable heat.
Yeah, heat, intolerable heat. That's right. So they're in there, and then he starts to heat up the room. Really scary.
Yeah, I like how they do this because they can't show that it's like the room's not on fire.
No, it's got like a fiery filmic effect or something going over the. Yeah, I think so.
To give you the impression, that this room is heating up somehow.
Right.
And the Phantom invites her to watch. There's like a little like slit kind of window you can see in there.
Yes.
And he's like, "Fools, do you think they can match wits against Eric?" And this is like Raoul's fading. Christine is like just freaking out.
Yeah.
we got to the mob assembling in the streets.
That's true.
Yep.
They're pissed off.
They're pissed off. And so we're going to get a lot of I'm not going to tell you every time it happens, but there's intercutting with this mob gathering and then eventually making their way down into the depths of the opera house.
Right.
So Christine is, on the steps. Phantom points at her and laughs and says, "What do you offer for their lives?" And he pulls her hair and he says, "Your answer quick. They can survive but a few moments."
Yeah.
Have
we gotten to the scorpion and the grasshopper?
Not yet. No.
Okay,
That's
cool.
next.
Yeah.
So Ledoux is digging in the sand. Raoul's note is useless.
Yeah, he's collapsed.
He's collapsed.
He's done.
But Phantom starts to look concerned because Ledoux pulls up like one of the stone masonry work that makes up the floor,
right? And
they go down into the room below,
right?
Which out of the frying pan and into the fire,
right?
Because there's no escape from this room, and it's filled with barrels of what turn out to be gunpowder.
It's awesome.
Yep. And the Phantom just goes back to playing the organ and laughing.
Yeah.
And a gate comes down and locks Raoul and Ledoux in this room below.
They're trapped once again.
Yep. And now we get to the scorpion and the grasshopper.
Thank you. I'm a fan.
If you want to explain what that is.
Well, I think that I'm actually a little bit rusty, but I know that the scorpion, if she turns the scorpion, I believe that means that she still loves Raoul and she's gonna let him die. And I think if she turns the grasshopper, that means that she loves the Phantom. Actually, you know what? It's been a minute.
Okay,
it's been a minute.
You're close, but not quite.
Okay.
So I forget which.
I'm smart.
Okay, I remember now. Okay, so the scorpion. If you turn the scorpion, what that basically conveys is, I will spare Raoul's life, but you will be mine forever.
That's right.
The grasshopper is, I set off the gunpowder and the entire opera house and everyone in it dies.
That's right. My God, it's been a while.
Yeah, I'll have you or no one will.
I watched the M.A.S.K scene, then I read up on it.
Yeah, and so I love. She is like. At a certain point, she starts reaching for the grasshopper. Yeah, and like you see it on the Phantom's face, of like, oh shit,
yeah,
he might actually kill us all. Yeah.
He's like,
and again, we know from the coffin bed, like that's not a totally undesirable outcome for him.
No, but he'd rather live. I think at this point,
he'd rather live and have Christine captive. Yeah,
yeah, sure.
But she eventually decides, no, I'm gonna turn the scorpion, which she does. Which what it does is it
floods
it takes the lake and floods it into the room with the gunpowder, which is good, except now
they're going to die.
They're going to drown in that room. So I'm sorry.
You're good.
So he says, I'll do anything you say if only you will save them. So the Phantom pulls up the rug they've basically been standing on in the middle of the room, presses a switch, which opens a trap door to that room, which is right below them.
Yeah, it's right below. Yeah. And they come and they climb out.
Right.
They're pulled out, really.
Yeah, Phantom even pulls Raoul out.
Yeah, he pulls him out.
In this act of like, all right, I will do this because I love you.
One redeeming moment.
Right. And so Christine cradles Raoul, and before the Phantom can really do anything, the mob is there. The alarm is the arms are going up and down.
Right.
Phantom sees it. He comes back and he laughs, and so he just grabs Christine and pulls her behind a curtain into the coffin room and disappears.
Right. Yeah, you're coming with me.
Yeah, you're coming with me. Yeah.
Many different versions of this were filmed. I mean, there was one where I think he escapes the mob and he goes back to Christine's house and he slowly dies. He's ill. He dies of a broken heart, and Raoul comes in. And I think Ledoux come in. There were multiple versions, but they finally went with a kind of a more effective version, kind of a Universal Monsters ending.
Yeah. So what happens is Ledoux and Raoul go to follow him. They can't figure out where they went.
Right.
But that doesn't take long. They pull the curtains aside and see there's a passage behind all of these lavish curtains.
Right.
Which is where they went. And outside, the Phantom steals that carriage and takes off just manically.
He's like,
he's
like laughing the film is all fast. He's like laughing his ass off, like it's fantastic.
Yeah, he's just jamming on those reins.
Jamming on those reins.
Yeah, as the mob is chasing them, Raoul is chasing them, and but eventually, Christine kind of comes to.
Yeah.
She jumps out of the carriage, which causes the whole thing to kind of tip over.
Yes.
And the Phantom wants to go back and pick her up out of the street.
Yeah, he's like.
But he can't because the mob is on his ass.
He's like, son of a bitch.
Right. So he just goes running. The mob catches up to Christine. Raoul catches up to Christine and like cradles her. That's the last time
they
we see
run
them.
around, right? And then they're done. They're out.
They're out. Phantom, as you said, he runs past the Cathedral of Notre Dame.
That's right.
Which is, again, an Easter egg for the audience would know. Again, as you said, Lon Chaney played Quasimodo in the earlier films.
2 years before.
If only he had played Cerdo de Bergerac, he could have crossed off all 3 famous deformed French lovers.
Yes,
in a career.
That would have been amazing. That would have been amazing if he actually did that. He could have.
Oh, he could have. He could have.
Yeah, we could do anything he wants.
All he had to do was a big nose. That's nothing compared to the other stuff he did.
That's right. That's right.
Anyway, so yes, he's chased by the mob. He runs down to the Seine, and he's trapped between two
parts of the mob. They're both cornering him from both sides.
Yeah, and so he does this great thing. This is
fantastic.
He reaches into his coat and he pulls up his fist like he's got a grenade in it.
Yeah.
And then he just opens his hand. There's nothing.
And he laughs his ass off. He's like, all right, I'm dead, but this was hilarious. He's like, the joke's on. It's like a Joker thing that he does, kind of.
Well, because I think thematically it kind of works in that his whole thing is about crafting this illusion of his power. And this is the last gasp of I really am not an illusion. I'm not a ghost. I'm a very real person. I got nothing left.
Right.
It was all bullshit.
It was all bullshit.
And they beat him to death and throw him in the river, and that's finis.
It's like the end. Yep. Yeah, but so many different versions filmed for this. Again, there was a version filmed where he was at the organ and he died of a broken heart, and the mob comes in and he's dead. There are a couple frames left of that. There are other versions that have been destroyed or they deteriorated away. But yeah, thus ends the Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera in 1925. That was very interesting, the way that you were telling me how it's all an illusion and everything, because I've always thought of the Phantom as larger than life, and even at the end, for me, he's created such an illusion that I know on one level he's human, but even at the end, he really does to me feel supernatural. I understand he's he's the kind of guy who probably would have fit in well at one of Diddy's parties or something, but maybe not at all. But no, he's always been this larger than life character to me, and that's always what appealed to me of the Phantom, is that hiding secrets and disfigured in some way, psychologically or actually visually. There are so many iconic things I love about the Phantom of the Opera. This was kind of my first taste of that. I think about a year later, I didn't get to see it with Michael Crawford, but I don't even think it was Robert Guillaume. I think I saw it with Davis Gaines. It was the name of the actor. So I saw it later in its run, but still created an amazing impact on me. The Phantom story is timeless. I, to this day, want to write my own Phantom of the Opera that is entirely loyal to LaRue's book, completely. Like what Peter Jackson did with Lord of the Rings. I want to do to the Phantom of the Opera. Somebody might do it first, but I think it's a really rich story to be told from beginning to end. There's so much more to explore with the Phantom.
Yeah, I think, as you said, it's thematically rich. There's so many layers to the Phantom character. This is probably one of the most monstrous versions of him. There's versions where he's obviously more of an anti-hero, where he's way more sympathetic.
Right.
Say, Phantom of the Paradise is a good example of that, where you're on his side.
And the Herbert Lom, you're definitely on his side. He's a dying composer who, yes, he got his face burned with acid, but he wants the best for Christine, and he even tells Raoul, he's like, you must do this for me. Where they're protecting against a guy called the Dwarf, who's the bad guy. The Dwarf brought down the chandelier. Hilarious. But yes, there are many different versions of the Phantom. I find all of them fascinating. All of them.
Yeah, they are all. I mean, again, there's so many takes on this material, but because, again, this one and the Weber musical are the only ones that really try to adapt the LaRue story directly. Right. I've always been, since I saw that show the first time, just enraptured with this story and trying to unravel kind of the enigma that is this guy. And there's a line in the Weber musical where they talk about, Christine says something like, this haunted face holds no horror for me now. It's in your soul that the true distortion lies.
Right.
And it's a great concept of he is ugly, he is monstrous, but what makes him scary and monstrous is not just his face. It is his actions. It's the things he does. It's his terrifying outlook on the world.
Right.
You know, I mean, again, like how scary would it be to find out that someone was living inside the walls of your house? You know, like all that
squatter,
stuff.
the squatter of the house. Yeah. Well, but in that, you know, are his justifications moral or are they valid? Because there's, you know, the world hated him deeply, and you know he got no love as a child. I'm not saying we should all dress up as the Phantom of the Opera and kill people and haunt an opera house. Might be fun though, but just for a Halloween prank. But that's what I love about the Phantom, is that it's this kind of timeless dilemma, the levels of good and evil, and that when he shows sympathy, it's so powerful. But he's a legendary monster. Everybody knows of the legend of the Phantom of the Opera, and very few people. That's the other thing that's amazing. Very few people get to know the truth. That's another thing that I found interesting, is that whether it's this version or the Charles Dance version, where he plays an amazingly sympathetic Phantom. That incredible performance by Charles Dance, if you haven't seen that version, the made-for-TV, phenomenal version.
We keep mentioning Charles Dance. That's Tywin Lannister from Game of Thrones.
And he's been in so many different films. I mean, good films, bad films. Last Action Hero, he's the bad guy in that. He was in The Golden Child, but he was phenomenal as the Phantom, because he conveyed a sense of deep sympathy, but he also became a monster in certain aspects. That's also one of the few versions of the Phantom where you never see his face.
Right, I was going to say.
He takes off his mask, but you see her expression. He says, "I have no face. I have only the semblance of a face, and nobody should ever have to look at it." There's powerful words spoken about that. It's the fight between good and evil within ourselves, the two sides fighting each other. And, you know, signing the deal with the devil, the whole idea of Faust, which is always in Phantom of the Opera, and, you know, the Phantom of the Paradise version, where he literally does sign a deal with the devil. Same with the Robert Englund version, where the devil disfigures his face. He says, the world will love you for your music, but that's all they'll love you for. And he makes them this horrible Freddy Krueger-esque Phantom. Great makeup. There's so many struggles within the Phantom, so many different moving parts. That's why I love the character, is that he's very complex. You can't figure it out. Even when you see his face, it's like, who the fuck is this guy really? Like, what's going on here? What are his allegiances to? What's his definition of love? You know, it's just very twisted, but I think that's why it's stood the test of time, all these different emotions.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that all of those things, which are, you know, intrinsic to this story, are on full display in this 1925 version. I think it'll last another 100 years, because, you know,
sure,
if people want to go see, hey, maybe I will check out a silent film out of curiosity. Yeah. This one's got to be right up there with like Nosferatu as like one of the ones you're going to watch. And right. I think this holds up. This has way more emotionality than something like Nosferatu. It's got all the kind of the romance angle, but
Nosferatu is a fucking monster. I mean, this guy is a human being with a mask, and he's trouble.
Yeah, and again, we've talked about it a bunch, but like the masterfulness of Lon Chaney's performance here, the layers he's able to get to, combined with the technical stuff on the makeup and his ability to convey so much in a silent medium, is just, there's nothing else like this. No. It is very rare that a horror movie from this far back can be this scary and still work. It is a masterwork.
It's a masterwork, and, you know, I went to Halloween Horror Nights at Universal last year, and they had a Universal Monsters maze where they did their own, you know, more modern, you know, kind of James Wan Blumhouse version of what monsters look like now. Really good stuff. And of course, the Phantom had his cameo, and I think it was the Lon Chaney face, but it was more disfigured, more burned. The iconography of the face, just that face, will go on and on forever. And I think the other thing I love about the Phantom, I know we'll be wrapping up soon, but the masks. I love the masks. When I first saw that mask for the Andrew Lloyd Webber, it was the full mask, the half mask, not the horizontal one, not the vertical one. That doesn't matter. The one on the cover that on the cover of your book.
Yeah, the covers his entire face, which they don't use at the show.
Right, but I bought a ceramic version of that, and I only lost it recently, but because I was moving, I had to throw things out. But I've always loved the masks too. I mean, my favorite is still the Claude Rains mask. I'm a huge fan of that, but I always love what they're going to do when they make a new version of Phantom. What kind of mask are they going to use? What's the wardrobe going to look like? Because he is, kind of like a modern Phantom boogeyman, so each version they get their chance to kind of show what are the emotions of Eric going to be like? Whose side is he on? It's like Godzilla. Whose side is he on? And what's he going to look like? What's the costume going to be? I'm huge into that stuff. That's just really kind of my deep love of horror movies. And I think at the bottom really is the Phantom of the Opera. I mean, Jaws is my favorite movie, but the depth of horror, I think the baseline is sort of Phantom of the Opera. The struggle of good and evil, the mask, the disfigurement, the cape. It's just so fantastical. It's like the stuff of dreams. I think that's why I've loved it so much.
A night of tortured dreams.
A night of torture. Well, yeah, the poetry in it is great too. And you're right, he exaggerates, a little bit. You really showed me tonight kind of like, okay, the guy really is kind of like a gaslighter and, that kind of stuff. But he was really fucking good at it. I mean, he put on a show for her. I mean, he enchanted her. And I've always found that a kick. The levels of what somebody will do to like enchant a woman. I mean, motherfucker went all out. Motherfucker went all out. Not a good idea, but he definitely is committed.
That's right. He left it all on the field.
Not a good man, but he he tried hard. And when you're a prisoner, disfigured, escaped from Devil's Island, what are you gonna do? He's gonna party in the opera house and kidnap singers.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad we got together again to do this for this little Halloween bonus episode. I've been kind of itching to talk about this one, and if you haven't had enough of me talking about it, again, I'll be on Chan's Place next week talking about it more. Again, talking more, not so much on the artistic side, but more on the kind of the really interesting film preservation stuff that goes with this, and
a
little more of the technical stuff. But yes, so some bonus Phantom content on top of the bonus Phantom content you're getting here. So, Alex, people want to find your stuff. You want to tell them about the Canyon and all that cool thing, all the cool stuff you're working on.
Yeah, we're so unfortunately, we do have to cut the Canyon down because it was a little too long. So we have a whole new list of festivals that we're going to be sending out to. So right now we're just in the process of finalizing a new cut for it. So it was 27 minutes. A little too long for a short, and I would be the first to agree. So we have it now a nice, more compact 23 minutes. So we're hoping that does the trick. No wins yet, but we will see. The night is young, and I am working on a horror script that I rewrote with my co-writer, and I have another co-writer who wrote Evil Dead 2, Scott Spiegel. We have a slasher horror script that we're hoping to get out there. So. Very busy man. I just moved to Costa Mesa. I'm tired all the time, but I'm always down to talk about Phantom of the Opera. Just name the time, and I'm always there.
That's awesome. I'm really glad you're working on this project. It's coming along so well.
Yeah.
So to do a few admin things on our side, of course, we are right in the middle of Spooky Month. So if you have thoughts on our recent episodes, the last two you heard were Killer Clowns from Outer Space, followed by Return to Oz with one Alex Sosin, you just heard this week.
Yeah.
Coming up next is Nightmare on Elm Street, followed by The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Fantastic.
And we've now locked in our November stuff. Oh, there might be one or two, a few more bonus Halloween things between now and the end of the month, which I'm excited about, but we'll see how that comes together. November's episodes are The World Is Not Enough, followed the James Bond movie, followed by Ernest Goes to Camp. Then we're doing our favorite songs of 1989, and closing out November for Thanksgiving with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. So, and after that, we're working on what's going to be in the Christmas pipeline. So lots of great stuff. If you have thoughts on those things, go to our social media portals. There's links to all that in the show notes, but just look up the Nostalgia Arcanum and a social network of choice. You'll probably find it. So feel free to contact us there. And if you do have the time, please do drop us a review on iTunes or wherever you found this. That really does help out a lot in terms of helping the algorithm grow the podcast, as does word of mouth. Of course, please tell people you liked it and sing for me, your angel of music. And that'll really cover it. Man, Alex, thanks again for coming by. It's always fun talking with you about film.
Always, man. Anytime.
All right. So until next time, that is one more entry in the Nostalgia Arcanum.